Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock on Monday, May 6th, 2024, and we'll call this regular City Commission meeting of Sault Ste. Marie City Commission to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Gary.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Bospis-Rath.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
Commissioner Habusta.
Here.
Commissioner Marble.
Here.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Here.
All present and accounted for. If everybody could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Item number 4, mayor comments and general announcements. Pat Shimmons died on April 11th, 2024. Pat lived most of her life in Sault Ste. Marie, retired in 2008 after a long career as the executive director of Sioux Housing Corporation, and she served as a Sault Ste. Marie City Commissioner from 2011 till 2015. She and her husband Bob moved to Oshkosh, Wisconsin after the retirement, so we certainly wish her family the best regards and certainly are thinking about them at this difficult time. It looked like they were going to have a service at Oak Lawn Chapel Gardens, I think it was in August, to celebrate the life of Pat Shimmons. Sioux Cleanup this past Saturday was Sault Ste. Marie Citywide Cleanup. Want to thank Mary Jo Duval for her coordination of the event, and thank you to the 40 volunteers who participated in picking up 80 bags of garbage. And as usual, the City Commission picked up and manager picked up Portage Avenue, and it was in pretty good shape, but we did manage to get a few bags out of the ditches. Lake Superior State University, congratulations to over 300 LSSU graduates at the LSSU 62nd commencement ceremony. Also like to congratulate Whitney Gravel, who's the president of Bay Mills Indian Community, and Dr. Kevin Cooper for their appointment to the LSSU Board of Trustees by the governor. This past weekend, 126 soldiers from the Michigan National Guard took part in bridge training operations, launching and assembling portable bridges. There are 183 members of the 1437th, with many locals, including somebody's husband on the dais, and we appreciate their service. Had an opportunity to participate in a Lawrence Technical University from Southfield, Michigan. They had their Master of Science Architecture students do a semester-long individual project for a course entitled Comprehensive Design. Final presentations were on April 29th, and they had a review panel of architects, educators, engineers, and representatives from the community where their projects are based. Trish Kaczynski, myself, and several members of the Parks and Rec Board attended as the hypothetical project was based in Sault Ste. Marie. There were 16 presenters and 22 reviewers, and we're hoping to get a copy of the presentations. The project was a sport and recreation building for one of 2 possible sites in the city. And it was just pretty neat to see all of those students from Southfield or wherever they were from participating in a Sault Ste. Marie project. And they did a great job in researching the area, and they had to research all the utilities available, the topography, and everything else. So it was pretty interesting. Had a lot of fun listening to it. And the election filing deadline was April 23rd, and the withdrawal deadline was April 26th, so it has passed. There will be no primary election for the city, as everybody is unopposed. Thank you to Jody Bospis-Rath and Andrew Rubenstein for filing to be re-elected, and to Tim Talentino for filing to fill the seat that will be vacated by Jay Gage in what he says is 12 more meetings. Interestingly, in doing a little bit of research, an analysis of more than 10,000 local elections nationwide found that more than 60% went uncontested in 2023. So this is not exclusive to Sault Ste. Marie or this election cycle. And I know that all of us will continue to exercise our responsibilities as though we were being challenged in a large field of applicants. So thank you, everybody, for serving. So we'll move on into item C, which is public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to reserve time to speak on any of our scheduled agenda items? Yes, sir. If you'd give us your name and which agenda item you'd like to speak to. Okay. Is that on agenda at all?
No, there would
Okay, that'll be in public comment at the end of the meeting then. Thank you. Anybody else? Pardon? I know, but yeah, our public comment period is at the end of the meeting. Appreciate it, though. Anybody else that would like to make any comments on any scheduled items? All right, so item B is the consent agenda. Deputy City Manager, Robin Troyer.
Thank you, Mayor. Under the consent agenda, 1, approval of the City Commission meeting minutes of April 15th, 2024. Item 2 is approval of the City Commission meeting minutes for the budget work session of April 16th, 2024. Item 3 is acceptance of the Historical Development Commission meeting minutes of March 19th. Item 4 is acceptance of the Police and Fire Pension Board meeting minutes of March 20th. Item 5 is acceptance of the PEHP DPW unit meeting minutes of April 3rd. Item 6 is acceptance of the PEHP firefighters, fire captains unit meeting minutes of March 4th. Item 7 is acceptance of the Sault Ste. Marie Housing Commission meeting minutes of March 21st. Item 8 is resignation of Stephanie Petro from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. Item 9 is schedule a public hearing for single lot special assessment rolls SL-1N-24 and SL-1W-24. Item 10 is consideration of an agreement extension with Stratus Security Management for cruise ship security. Item 11 is consideration of an agreement extension with Manquin Vance for health insurance agent services. Item 12 is consideration of bid award for the purchase of asphalt emulsion spray patching. Item 11 is consideration of a bid award for the purchase of liquid calcium chloride for dust control on gravel roads. Item 14 is consideration to apply for a Michigan Maritime and Port Facility Grant. Item 15 is consideration to apply for a Port Security Grant Program to fund Ashman Bay Project. Item 16 is consideration to apply for MDOT TEDFF Grant for Phase 2 of Meridian Street. Item 17 is consideration to apply for Surface Water Intake Protection Program Grant. Item 18 is consideration to amend the TIFA 3 capital expenditure budget. Item 19 is consideration to amend the EDC contracted services budget for foreign trade zone legal fees. And item 20 is approval of the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Quite a lengthy consent agenda tonight. So would any commissioner like any item further explained or removed for individual consideration? Commissioner Gage.
Briefly, I just wanted two quick things. One, if we can pull off number 18. I have some additional thoughts about that. But I just also want to add a thank you to Stephanie Petro for her service on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. I know Stephanie really well. She's a good person, and I think that she's sadly stepping down for some health reasons. So it's sad to see her go, but she's been a good asset to our community, and so I just want to thank her for her service.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anybody else? Commissioner Bauer, would you like to make the motion with the exclusion of 18?
Sure. With the exclusion of item 18, I move that we adopt tonight's consent agenda.
Support.
Has been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Motion passed unanimously. So we'll run to the removed item number 18. City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 18 on the consent agenda is a request for a budget amendment and approval for a capital project and $55,000 for an airport layout plan. The EDC board approved it about a week or so ago, EDC TIFA 3 board. I think there's been some questions about it since that time period, but happy to take whatever direction the commission gives regarding this item.
Thank you, City Manager. Commissioner Gage.
Seeing as I'm the one that pulled it off, I just, in talking to some of the folks on the EDC board that I know, I don't necessarily know if this is a fully decided issue. I think they wanted maybe a longer conversation. So it'd be my opinion that I think we should table and refer back to them for maybe a little bit further conversation. So that's my motion.
Okay, and that's a motion?
Yeah.
I'll support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the tabling motions?
I actually
I'm
do
sorry.
have a question,
Sure,
and that
Commissioner
goes to Commissioner Rubenstein, since he is the EDC liaison. Commissioner Rubenstein, do you know anything about any of these concerns?
Vaguely, I think they came up after the meeting, or there were some questions in the meeting. I guess I'll defer to City Manager Chapman. I don't know if you have a little more detail on it. Like in the meeting, it was discussed and approved. It sounds like maybe some more info came out after the fact.
Correct, yeah. So it was presented and discussed during the meeting. There was an understanding that this process might have been a requirement from the state for the operations of the airport. Somebody did a little bit of digging on it and maybe came up with that it's not necessarily a requirement, and they want to research the administrative rules from MDOT that govern the airport layout plan regarding if it's requirement or if it's just a best practice, kind of should have kind of thing. So I think the EDC board is just looking for some more information. There was a couple of members from the Airport Advisory Board that may have stated some things incorrectly, and they're just kind of wanting a little bit of clarity on that particular item.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that was related to some state funding though, correct? If this is tabled, it would impact NIPIUS, correct? They would have to go into the next cycle in applying for that. It would delay things a couple of years. Is that my understanding?
I don't know if it would delay it a couple of years or not.
Okay.
I don't know that.
Any other questions or comments? I'm in favor of tabling it as well, and I think in the discussions I had with a couple of EDC board members, it's just worthy of some more investigation to see if it's a requirement or a
Yeah.
update.
Just to add, I'm not sure if it, the timeline and whatever, I think, where I'm coming from is I've talked to a few board members who wanted to have maybe a little bit more of a conversation about it, so that's why I offered to table it and send it back to them. Hopefully it's prompt and quick turnaround, so.
Perfect. Any other questions, comments? All in favor of the tabling motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passed 6-1. All right, moving on into item E, which is special orders of business. Number 1, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First up for commission consideration tonight is a hit or wish from the budget process from a couple of weeks ago. The commission will recall during the budget hearing, there was a request from Commissioner Habusta regarding the funds that were set aside in the contingency. I believe his request was to move that and put it into salaries for the DDA. This item, we didn't have a recommendation on it as the budget is the recommendation. But other than that, we have the impact in this item for you. And if there's any other questions, we'd be happy to entertain them. Otherwise, we look for direction from the commission on which way to go.
Thank you, City Manager. Commissioner Habusta, do you want to make any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I understand a partial funding of the DDA director position is included under the general fund line item contingency. I continue to feel proper accounting of the funds should be accounted for as an existing line item position within the DDA budget until such a time as the DDA executive director position no longer exists. A contingency fund under a general fund listing is not proper way to account for the contingency. Rather, I fully believe the position should be reflected in the DDA budget. If the commission chooses to keep the contingency line item instead of including it in the general fund, it should be at the very least included in a line item under the DDA, as the contingency is not a general fund contingency, rather a contingency for the DDA director. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Commissioner Rubenstein.
I think I mentioned it during the budget session. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, whether it's in contingency or in the DDA budget. So I understand what Commissioner Booth is saying, but for City Manager Chapman, can you play out the scenario a little bit? Does it change anything whether the DDA and the EDC go with a combined director, or if they end up staying as is with the DDA and an EDC director? Is that 84,500 going to change where it's going? It's ultimately going to go towards that position no matter what, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So should they decide not to combine them or they go in a different direction, those funds would be more than likely used for the salaries for the DDA. So yes.
Commissioner Gage had a question on that.
I just want to make sure that there's clarity for folks that are at home. I know that we all understand this, but for the folks in the community that are confused, in talking to Commissioner Habusta prior to the budget meeting, I shared his concerns that there was not a line item for a DDA director's salary, but through the budgeting process when we discussed it, there's a separate line item called contingency within the general fund, given that there is some question and uncertainty about if with the future of the DDA and the EDC, and there's at least some conversation about that. So while I definitely agreed with and was concerned about it before, my concerns were alleviated by having that explanation at the city budget session. So I support what we've got right now, and I'll move forward with that. Just want to make sure that there's clarity.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Habusta?
Just a response quickly. A contingency line item in a general fund does not necessarily tie that to DDA funding, which is why, again, if I completely feel if it has to be a contingency, which, again, I don't agree with. I feel that until that position is no longer existing, it should be funded within the DDA budget. Why would the contingency then not be put as part of the DDA line item and instead a general fund?
Next, Commissioner. Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion? So in order, this is a hit and wish, so we'd have to have a vote if you wish to have it changed. Otherwise, it would stay, it would remain the way that it was presented at the budget session.
And I would motion to amend the budget to include the $84,500 within the DDA budget and remove it from the contingency budget.
It's been moved. Any support? Going once.
I'll support it, sure.
Has been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Motion failed on a 5-2 vote. All right, well, moving on. Special orders of business number 2, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to set public hearings to wrap up the budget process. This item has 2 motions to it: scheduled public hearing for Monday, May 20th, and the final resolution for the tax levy, scheduled public hearing for Monday, May 20th in the City Commission chambers for the water and sewer rates beginning fiscal year July 1, 2024, and scheduled public hearing for Monday, May 20th, 2024 in the Commission chambers for General Appropriations Act for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024, ending June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, City Manager. Any questions on this item for the City Manager? Commissioner Boswell-Rath.
Motion 1, schedule a public hearing for Monday, May 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m. on a final resolution for purpose of establishing a 2024 tax levy.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Commissioner Boswell-Rath.
Number 2, schedule a public hearing for Monday, May 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the City Commission chambers on the adoption of water and sewer rates for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion also passed unanimously. And number 3, city manager, or Commissioner Voss was right.
Moving right on. Number 3, and schedule a public hearing for Monday, May 20th, 2024 at 7 PM in the City Commission Chambers on the General Appropriations Act for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. E, special orders of business. Now, city manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a draft ordinance from the fire department regarding Knox boxes on commercial businesses. So the ordinance presented to you is under its first reading tonight. The motion itself is just to schedule a second reading if the commission so wishes. The ordinance as presented requires Knox boxes, which are the boxes that would be on commercial businesses, so that the fire department or police department have quick access into the structure should there be a reason to go into the structure. So, for example, if there's a business that has a fire alarm, the alarms are going off, nobody's around, the fire department has the opportunity to enter it, to check, make sure everything's closed, lock it back up, without the requirement of going through a window or breaking down a door. So it is a mechanism for us to respond quicker to potential issues. This is, as a note, this is a requirement within the International Fire Code. This codifies it within our ordinances and within our development processes, but it also allows for a 3-year window for businesses to comply with the ordinance. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them. Otherwise, we look for a motion to schedule the second reading for May 20th, 2024.
Thank you, city manager. Anybody have any questions for the city manager or fire chief? Commissioner Gage.
Just if the city manager or fire chief could talk about the scope of this. I mean, like, in general, are we gonna require everybody with a padlock to change their locks to a Knox lock within a certain amount of time?
I will hand that off to the fire chief.
Good evening, chief.
Good evening. Great question, and really it's for businesses that are recognized under the International Fire Code that have commercial uses or multi-residential.
Or multi-residential units above 3 or 3 or more. The code's always been there and it's been adopted. It just got lost in the shuffle somehow. So we're trying to get caught up with that, and it'll be focused on businesses that we would have more of a opportunity to attend to, which would be ones with alarms, ones with suppression systems. And then if we do come across any other ones in between that don't fit into that group, if we have to force entry, they would have to put a Knox box up at that time or a lock box up at that time. So it's just getting caught up with some things that have been left behind.
Just a
Mr. Gage, sure.
quick follow-up question. Do we have any idea, I know this existed before, do we have any idea of how many businesses would need to be brought into compliance versus like that are currently out of compliance with this? Do we have any idea of that, or a rough estimate? No
Rough
idea.
estimate, I would say probably about 100.
Okay.
That's a rough estimate, but there's businesses out there that we find stuff on just about every day, so.
Good questions.
Yep.
Anybody else? Commissioner Rubenstein?
Is there a potential funding source for business owners? Like, I know for us personally, we have one commercial mixed-use building downtown, so it's not that big of a deal. But if someone has multiple, it could be somewhat impactful for them. Are there grant opportunities or anything like that?
Good question.
There may be some benefits or bonuses through insurance agencies that, protect the property through premiums, but I don't know if there's any specific grants at this time for that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Habusta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's currently I'm just trying to wrap my head around this a little bit more. So you mentioned currently there's 100 or so businesses that don't have. So what percentage would you say that is of our?
That's a great question.
Okay.
Because again, we know how many, for example, how many suppression systems we think are in the town based on water fire lines. but we have no idea at this point, because of past record keeping, what alarm systems are in place. We don't have much compliance with our contractors that maintain alarm systems and suppression systems, which are required to report to us annually what inspections are within the city. I got 3 last year. So we're digging through a lot of old stuff to figure out where these systems are. We did an inventory last year of all the current Knox boxes, and we found that some with the addresses and everything just didn't exist. So it's been a little bit of a needle in a haystack, but we have to start somewhere. So we're gonna, over the next 3 years, focus on trying to identify these buildings and help the business owners become compliant.
Have you had many forced entries that you've had to do because of a lack of Knox box?
The majority of our forced entries have been at facilities with Knox boxes. So that definitely works well. I'd have to look back and see how many we've done. I know in my past area where I worked in, we would probably force a door, probably just about every day. And it gets expensive. A commercial door, if we damage it, it's probably about $700 to $1,000 worth of damage to fix it right. And we can always get in. That's what we're trying not to do, though. We want to be able to secure the building afterwards and make sure that it's cost effective for the business owner and, for us to get into the building.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Boss was right at the agenda.
Yeah, just a comment. I appreciate your due diligence on this because ultimately you're going to be keeping people more safe, quicker in a timely fashion. So it's kind of scary to think of the situations that could have happened or almost happened for one reason or another. So good job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Just one last question. So I know a lot of insurance companies, when there is a suppression system, require them to get inspected. I forget what it is, like every 1, 3, and 5 years, there's different levels. Are they not always reporting back to you, or what is that process supposed to be? Is it supposed to be the insurance company coming to you, the building owner getting the report and sending it to the fire department?
Usually it's either the building owner or the alarm company that's monitoring or servicing the alarm should reach out to us. It's in our ordinance already that is done. But what we find more often is that systems aren't being inspected or maintained regularly. So if they don't have if the business owner doesn't have a contract with a service provider, the service provider has no obligation to report that to us. So, and we're working on that too. I think sometimes that's a little bit of it just gets lost in the shuffle because there's so many other things for our business owners to worry about. And that's part of what we're doing with our inspections is reminding them that certain systems need to be done every year and help them get that going.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bauer.
Earlier, when you said that you found that they didn't exist, who were the they in that sentence? They meaning Knox boxes? They meaning the businesses that they said had Knox boxes? Or they meaning the buildings that they said had Knox boxes?
Yes to all three. It has been an amazing research project, I would call it. We've had it where we've had a Knox box that was approved for delivery to a building, and there's no address, there's no building where that should be, so we don't know where the box is. And the interesting part, though, is that when people buy the boxes, they need us to put the keys in them and to lock it. And that's where now we have a new process in place where we're registering them to the building and we're making sure that we have contact information and we're making sure that the keys work properly. And we're starting an annual maintenance that the fire department will be doing is going to each box every year and making sure that they still work, that it's still the same business, and that the keys still work. So we found that just through the years, a lot of them were just approved. It was up to the owner to have them mounted and call the fire department back to actually install the keys and lock the keys in the vault. The way that the vaults work is we have a master key, and that gets us into the box. It's up to the owners to provide us with the keys that are required by the code. If they have an elevator, they have to have an elevator key, stuff like that. And then we secure it at that point. So we've had it where boxes were ordered twice for a building and one was never installed, so it was sitting on a shelf. We had it where there were no business or building anymore, and then we've had it where there's just no record of who owns it. So, another building, it had one in the front of it and one in the back of it, and the new owner of the business didn't realize there was a box at the back of the building. So we're working a little better to make sure that we can coordinate the needs of the business owners by doing this too.
Thanks. What I would like, and we didn't have a motion on this yet.
Not yet.
right? I would actually make a motion that we have a first reading, but not at our next meeting, but give it at least a month, because I would like to hear more feedback from the business community, because it seems to me that they're the ones who are most affected by this.
So you could make that motion. I think the motion is for May 20th with the second reading. So if the commission so chooses to, you could amend that motion, or not amend it, because it's not final yet. You could change the motion to be the first meeting in June 3rd, or whatever subsequent commission.
Yeah,
meeting.
I would say that a month should be enough time to get more feedback on this, and that we should have a first reading of this ordinance on June 3rd, 2024.
Can I, just real quick before you guys, I'm sorry. That's what you're saying. We cannot do the
Right.
3rd, because we will be in Sioux, Ontario on June 3rd for our commission meeting. So,
All the better.
17.
June
So, yes.
17th.
June 17th. June 17th.
Okay, that is my motion, June 17th.
Support. It's been moved and supported that we approve the first reading of the ordinance as presented and schedule second reading for June 17th.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Chief. All right, so we'll move on into item F, which is communications. Number 1, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, Director Twos will be walking you through our annual Consumer Confidence Report. This is a requirement through Eagle, and is it EPA requirement too, Kirk?
Yes.
It is an EPA requirement. So this is kind of the annual synopsis of the quality of the drinking water. It goes over the tests.
It's not on. It's being stubborn.
But it's our annual reports. These will be made available on the city's website, social media, a couple hard copies throughout the city. So if there's any other questions, they can come and stop in and take a look at them, or they can get a hold of the water department. But without further ado, I will turn it over to Director Twos to kind of walk us through his presentation.
Perfect. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor, Commissioners. Once we get going here, if Bonnie can see it. There we go. We're in business, so we'll kick it off here. Does anybody want a hard copy? I do have hard copies available. Anybody? Sure. So, we'll kick this off. Actually, this week is kind of an important week for us water operators. This is Drinking Water Week for us here, May 5th through the 11th. So this is something that started a while ago, actually. In 1988, they brought this. Ronald Reagan signed this into law, and this is a celebration of us drinking water operators. And Drinking Water Week provides a unique opportunity for both us professionals and communities, such as Sault Ste. Marie. They recognize the vital role that water plays in our daily lives. This year also marks the historic milestone. This is the 50th anniversary of the Safe Water Drinking Act. Later this fall, there's some big events later on through the EPA and Eagle that are upcoming, so that's good. The city currently has 13 professional operators in charge of your drinking water, and plus all the support staff and everybody else, of course, that supports them. So it's a community thing. So we'll get into the water quality report there. Say, as City Manager Chapman says, it's a EPA requirement by law. I have to have this published each year by July 1st, which we're doing good. It's May 6th, so we're well on our way to be in front. We just have to go through some things here for that guidance. The Consumer Confidence Report provides need-to-know information, such as where your source water comes from. It lists regulated contaminants that we test for each year, potential health effects from consuming contaminated water, if there is such a thing, and contaminant levels in our CCR compared to national standards. So the big important thing inside of our CCR each year is the water quality data table, and that's a little confusing. It looks kind of interesting, and there's a lot of things that throw at you there, but some things that you should know: the maximum contaminant level, or the MCGL, is the value in your water, that there's no known or expected risk to your health. Maximum residual disinfectant level goals are on there. Those are the goals that we're trying to reach and not exceed. Maximum contaminant threats, MCLs. Those are the things that are the bad things. We don't want to go over those. Those causes our issues. And then there's treatment techniques in there that aren't necessarily regulated, but we have to express those to the community. And then, of course, there's any violations. This year we didn't receive any violations, so there will be none present. So your chart looks like this inside there, with all the goodies in there. We'll get to that here in a second. So people may be asking why you don't get a CCR. In years past, we were required to mail these out to each and every person, water bill in the city and in the township. They've changed some of the rulings with the digital age that we don't have to do this, so print copies are available at City Hall. We also distribute them to the Bayless Public Library, to the Chippewa County Health Department, and of course they can always be sent to you by request. Contact the utility billing office. They'll also be posted on the city webpage, and there will be a direct link to post on your water bill that you can follow. If you have any concerns about your water or your CCR, you can always call the EPA Safe Water Hotline. They are there. They have lots of answers, questions. Of course, you can always call me out at the water plant. I will answer your questions. You can also contact your healthcare provider. And as I said, you can always contact treatment facility. So let's get into this year's Consumer Confidence Report. So here's your Consumer Confidence Report for the year. We've been treating water in the city of Sault Ste. Marie for over 130 years. It's actually kind of one of the older communities in the state to actually serve water, which is great. It's our pleasure to report in the 2023 and all years past, the water delivered from the water treatment facility has met or surpassed all federal and state standards for quality, which is fantastic. That's what we aim for every day. Some changes this year. Lead is becoming a growing concern. Of course, everybody knows about Flint and Benton Harbor and Baltimore, Maryland, and all the other towns that you can list off the top of your heads. So there's been some changes. EPA provided some new infographics here that are inside the report. We also have our test results here. Our test result this year, our 90th percentile test result was 1 part per billion. That's actually down. We attribute a lot of that to elimination of our old leaded brass meters. Changing to the new polymer style meters has definitely shown a significant impact in levels in our community. We still have a long way to go. We did receive a TMF grant last month. We're going to start doing investigations and replacements of galvanized lines and trying to find a little bit more lead in our system as we go along this summer. Another big one is PFAS. PFAS is starting to grow more and more. popularity. A lot of that has to do with testing. There's more and more labs that have become certified, and there's more and more analytical methods. Currently, the city of Sault Ste. Marie, we're in UCMR 5, which is the uncontaminated rule monitoring period for 5, that we are going deeper into the PFAS world and as well as pesticides and some other chemicals that they're looking at to potentially change limits for our drinking water. So we do have our PFAS results for the results that we are required to test at this time. Our levels are below anything that concerned. We can't call them non-detect because the test lab that we send them to does not go that low. So, but there are no known levels of PFAS in our water. And then again, City of Sault Ste. Marie Water Treatment Facility and the Sewer and Water Department staff continue to work around the clock to provide us with top quality, superior water to every tap. So that's it for this year's CCR. There are coloring pages at the end of this. Again, I said that last year. I said if anybody wants to send them into the water plant, I'll be more than happy to post them up there. I do have a lot of wall space that's blank, and we will accept those from the community if they want to color for us.
Thank you, Director. Commissioner Bauer.
Is this available online?
It will be tomorrow.
Okay, great. Then I don't need a hard copy.
Right.
Mr. Rubenstein.
First off, thank you for keeping our drinking water safe. I think this is a good thing. Did I see that our intake pipe is over 100 years old, or the intake out in the Superior is over 100 years old? Just general question: how is that maintained? How that's impressive. How is that possible that it's still in good working order?
Lake Superior is really good water. We do have our intake tested. We have to have it. We have requirements to have it tested once every 5 years. We have a diver go out there and test it, and they take a look at it and make sure it's stable. We do have some erosion at our intake crib that we're working on, trying to get some funding to get that stabilized. But the pipe itself is in fantastic shape. It even was hit back in the 60s by a freighter anchor and put back together, and it still serves us today. It's a 1905 30-inch pipe, and it's in good shape.
No. What are you gonna name it? Line what?
No, I just want
Mr. Gage.
to thank Director Tews for this report. I think it has a nice flow to it, certainly. And hopefully this report can quench the public's thirst for knowledge about our water system. And I appreciate you and the work you do to protect our liquid assets. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anybody else? 12 more? Yeah, 12 more. 12 more. But then he could be an audience member. Thank you very much. Pretty impressive. 130 years, and the city has met or surpassed all federal and state standards for water quality. That's excellent. Thank you. All right, moving on into G, business items. Number 1, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up first for commission consideration is a request to award a bid to HESCO for the purchase of 6 smart cover sewer meters in the amount of $39,912. The smart cover sewer meters are essentially meters that are sitting underneath the covers of sanitary or stormwater manholes. There's a lot of functionality with these meters. We've used them throughout the city right now. We're requesting 6 more. Right now, we use them to gauge the amount of water that's flowing through the system. So like last week, when we had all that rain, we were able to gauge the actual amount of water that was flowing, and in some cases, gauge whether or not a certain section was going to have a sanitary sewer overflow, SSO. So we would look for a motion to purchase the 6 smart cover meters from HESCO in the amount of $39,912.
Thank you, City Manager. Anybody have any questions or comments on this item? Mr. Rubenstein, would you like to make the motion?
Motion to purchase 6 smart cover sewer meters with accessories from HESCO for the purchase price of $39,912.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Sure, Commissioner Bauer.
Once we know there's going to be an overflow, what do we do about it? Just out of curiosity.
For the time being, we kind of stage around, we clean it up a little bit when it does happen. There's a mandate within our NPDES permit for the wastewater treatment plant that we have to calculate and estimate how much has spilled over and report it to Eagle. Big picture wise, what we use that information for is to help guide our CSO projects that we're still continuing to do. So in theory, as we close out the CSOs, we shouldn't have any more SSOs or bypasses. So if it's gonna overflow, it's gonna overflow, but at least it gives us a heads up so that we can kind of gauge how bad it's gonna be. But again, a lot of it's for our reporting with Eagle, but data, so we can prove that once we have completed the last CSOs or made enough system improvements, that we no longer have those.
Gotcha. So it's more for planning because we can't really prevent these episodes.
Yeah, it's planning a little bit of, yes, the only way we can really prevent them is to increase the capacity of the system or increase the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant, which we're in the middle of trying to do with the two big projects that we have going on. But as it's primary planning, so even as we try to identify areas that may contribute, like for example, this area over here overflows in a heavy rain, we try to find the branches in the system that maybe that excess water is coming in. So we'll move the manhole meters around to different branches to see if there's a major overflow of water coming that way, and then work further upstream to try to find those areas where there's a lot of I&I getting into the system.
Thank you.
Yes, so in short, yes, a lot of planning.
All right, any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Under G, business items, number 2, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to award a bid for our local bridge maintenance program. This was bid out. We received one bid back from Anlin Corp. in the amount of $122,000. That dollar amount does exceed the funding that we have available. So engineering worked with the company to knock down the project within our fundable range. Hence the change order to decrease the total cost to $35,500. There's also a motion to amend the project to chip in $1,400 from the major street fund. So some of the work will still be done. It'll be accomplished through city crews. But this is our kind of annual, biannual maintenance program that we typically do for the bridges.
Thank you, City Manager. Anybody have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Marvel, would you like to make this motion? The three
Thank you,
motions,
Mr.
separate
Mayor.
motions, sorry.
Motion to award the bid to the sole bidder, Anlin Corp., a Michigan firm, in the amount of, what, I can't read,
$122,000.
$122,000.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Commissioner Marble, number 2.
Motion to approve the change order number 01 to decrease the total cost to $35,500.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. And number 3, Commissioner Marble.
Motion to amend the project budget with an increase of $1,400 to come from the major street fund.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion also passed unanimously. Thank you. Item G, business items, number 3, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to accept an Eagle grant for the final phase of City Hall's LED conversion project, as well as a motion to amend the existing budget by $82,400. So last year, we brought forward this grant. When we received it, we put out an RFB to retrofit a lot of the lights to LEDs. I believe in the past, we've used this actual same grant in some other facilities throughout the city that we own. This will be the final phase for the City Hall project. It's 100% funded by Eagle. So we would look for a motion to accept the grant as presented, as well as a motion to amend the budget as presented.
Any questions or comments for city manager? Commissioner Gage?
I think this is great, and I appreciate you bringing this to us, fully grant funded, and it's tremendous. So with that, I motion to accept Eagle Grant Award for the final phase of City Hall's LED conversion and allow the city manager to sign.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Commissioner Gage, number 2.
Motion to amend the existing City Hall Energy Grant project budget with an increase of $82,400, fully funded by the grant.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion also passed unanimously. Thank you. G, business items number 4, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to purchase 7 Stryker AED units for the police department. Stryker Life Pack 1000 AEDs is our go-to AED for the fire department, the police department, throughout City Hall. It has interoperability with the hospital, transfer units that we have in place there. So it's kind of keeping everything the same throughout the system without having to change kind of a critical piece of component. So we are requesting to waive the bidding process, since Stryker is our go-to for AEDs. And again, the biggest thing is keeping them all the same throughout the system there. So we have a motion to waive the competitive bidding process, motion to authorize the purchase from Stryker for 7 life packs at the cost of $21,921.55, and a motion to amend the police capital budget with an increase of $5,000 in funding coming from the general fund.
Thank you very much. Any questions for city manager, police chief, or fire chief? Commissioner Habusta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just, and I have a friend who says, who sits on the board, who says, I'm just a plumber. And so I'm just sitting here trying to understand this, because I just wrap my head around it a little bit. How does the compatibility component work? You know, in my mind, I see AED operating and saving life. And explain to me the importance of the compatibility component.
I will defer that to Chief Miller and Chief Bierling.
Yep. Good evening, Chief and Chief.
So when we arrive on scene, we hook our AED up. Oftentimes we're on scene prior to fire department. So we put our pads on the AED, or our AED pads on the patient. We may start to monitor that patient and administer shock to that patient if it's necessary. The problem is when there's when fire department or ambulance arrives on scene, transferring that care over, currently our old equipment we have doesn't hook up to their equipment. And so the fire chief can talk about that. So they have to, attach separate equipment, take our equipment off, attach their equipment to the patient, and same if we were to go direct to the hospital's equipment can't work off of our equipment. So this would allow our pads that we've already put on a patient to be used by fire department personnel, by hospital personnel. It hands that patient off with equipment already attached to that patient.
It makes it seamless too that, we're not spending more money in the treatment of the patient. So the interoperability of the equipment is great, and it also allows us to share equipment and to restock them on site, rather than the police department maintaining their own stock and us maintaining our own. So that really works well for the usability. They do have a shelf life on them. They're expensive. So I think we're getting a bigger bang for our buck by having that interoperable feature between all of them. And there is a speed of convenience, I guess. To unplug and plug in a unit is much quicker for the patient care rather than trying to reapply the patches. Unfortunately, Stryker, they're a sole source vendor when it comes to these machines, and the ones that are covered by warranty have to be purchased through Stryker. So that's something that you might see online. It's like, well, I can buy them online for half the cost. But those are not certified by Stryker. They're usually refurbished and they don't have the FDA approval or the warranties that go along with them. So that's why we recommend that you buy them through Stryker.
Thank you. That actually was my second question. A quick Google search revealed other, Stryker products, so that explains that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chiefs. Any other
Thank you.
questions for them while they're there? Commissioner Gage.
I motion to waive the sealed competitive bidding process, considering Stryker as a sole source provider.
It's been moved and supported that we waive the process. Any questions or comments? And this one must be unanimous in order to pass. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Item number 2, Commissioner Gage.
I motion to authorize the purchase from Stryker of 7 LifePak 1,000 AEDs at the cost of $21,921.55.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Action number 3.
I further move to amend the police capital equipment budget with an increase of $5,000 in funding to come from the general fund.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion also passed unanimously. Moving on to G, business items. Number 5, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can we throw those up on pictures?
Yeah. Let me plug in my computer. Up next for commission consideration is the final change order for the, it's the final change order for the fire hall project. The commission will recall that we set some monies aside to renovate the second floor of the fire hall, more particularly the bathroom area and the living quarters. With the changing demographics in the department, moving to being inclusive of female firefighters, we needed to have accommodations for the staff. So the money was bid out. We had a contractor come in. They totally revamped the whole space. They turned one bathroom into 2 really nice bathrooms. They redid the living quarters. There's cubicles up now, but we'll throw up some of the before and after photos as soon as my computer loads up here.
Big file. Any questions for the city manager while we're waiting for the file to upload? Any comments from the fire chief? It's your building. Do you want to make any comments or no?
Go ahead. I'm still loading here.
Might as well kill some time, eh? Commissioner Rubenstein.
Commissioner-elect Talentino makes a great model in all the photos. He's in every single one.
Yeah, forget the pictures. Forget the pictures.
Well, first, thanks for the opportunity to make this renovation. The station's been in service since 1907, so it occasionally needs a little TLC to keep it going, and the work that we did accomplished a lot of that. Had a lot of help with Dave Boyle and his office with engineering as we managed the project together in an effort to try to save some money in the process, as well as assisting the contractor in trying to adjust our budget and stay within our means with doing what we wanted to do to make the space better. The pictures are great. I promise you, when they come up.
Bonnie, will you throw my screen up on the screen?
There we go.
So we'll kind of work backwards to do the before going into the afters. So you just kind of scroll out a little bit. So this is the floor and the locker doors during the sanding process.
Yes. And one of the big things was to keep the sort of the essence of the building with, in the remodel, not just throw paint over everything. The old floors, this is the first time that it's been, second time that it's been refinished, but it's probably the first time it's been refinished properly by somebody other than a firefighter. So it turned out really well. But that is the original flooring to the station. During the demolition, we found out too that there was a drop ceiling in place that took away 2 foot of the ceiling height of the building. We raised it back up to its original height, which really gives it a lot more character. And hard to see. That's them working on the ceiling sideways, but,
Yeah.
yeah,
tilt
it
your head
took
on that
them
one.
a lot of work, and we were very lucky to have the contractors that we had. They really took their time and care with it. That's a demo of the bathroom, the single bathroom that was made into two different ones, which was a good use of space, and it corrected some issues that were in that space as well. It looks small here, but eventually we'll get you there so you can see them, and it's,
Is that a
the
ghost?
space actually fits well.
Is there a ghost in the corner there?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. Something's over there.
And
But
this
that's-
is the finished product, right?
That's the finished product before we put the dividers up for the dorm room, and it really made the space look good.
Very nice.
And then the lockers were refurbished, and those will be used in part by the senior people on the department.
We're still doing some work. It's bathrooms in progress. This is one of the close to finished bathrooms.
We took a lot of pictures, but it was good.
This is the fire pole that goes down
Right.
to the basement, or not the basement.
The
first
fire
floor.
pole was originally requested in our proposal for, to be fixed and meet current standards. It was just way too much. So we were planning on closing it off, and the contractor had a better idea, and I think we have a picture of it. They actually closed it off with glass so you can see through it still, and engraved a ring around it to tell us about the history of the fire department. So it turned out really nice.
It looks like a one-man show doing this project, doesn't it?
He worked very hard. Yes.
All right, there we go. Now we're in the finished.
Okay.
So you got the redone lockers in the back there, the finished floors with the new stain, another angle of it, and then going up a little bit more, new doors, and there it is. So it's a glass cover over it,
Yes,
so it keeps the design and the look of it intact.
but it seals it off from diesel exhaust or anything that might come up through that space, and keeps people from falling through it.
Right.
So that's a good thing.
Was that a problem?
It could have been. The way it was is we had it covered with wood, but it was like a 3/8 inch plywood. Not the best for sealing off any exhaust fumes that might come up into the space. And we tried to position furnishings around it to keep people from walking on it. So, by my OSHA rules, for a fire pole in the state of Michigan, it has to have an enclosure around it, at least 3 foot around it, and it has to be sealed and cleared of all exhaust, which ours doesn't. It's original. We didn't want to lose it. At one time, that fire station had 2 poles. They already took one out when they were remodeling in the past, so we wanted to keep that history still.
Looks great. Thank you,
Thanks.
Chief. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Gage?
I just want to acknowledge too, certainly Sailor Creek Contracting is owned by a wonderful young man in our community, Noah Talentino. Certainly the former colleague of ours, Tim Talentino, works for his son. But I think this is tremendous that they were able to do all this great work and come in enough under budget that we're able to add additional things on the back end of it. So the work that they've done, I think, speaks for itself. They did a tremendous job, and I just appreciate the dedication to come in under budget that we can add additional things on the back end of it. So thank you to them.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Habusta, would you like to make that motion?
Motion to approve change order number 4 in the amount of $7,250 and authorize the city manager to execute.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. G, business items number 6, City Manager Chapman.
Last but not least is just a request to go into the closed session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act concerning negotiations with bargaining units and a CBA. We will not be coming back into open session after this, as there will be no requested action taking at this time.
Commissioner Boswell-Rath, would you like to make the motion?
Motion to enter closed session in accordance to Section 8C of the State of Michigan Open Meetings Act.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will move into closed session after conclusion of this meeting. Item H is city manager announcements and updates. Wasn't anything in the report. Do you have anything this evening?
I don't have anything this evening.
All right, now the moment you've been waiting for. Item I is matters presented by the public. If you'd like to come up and state your name for the record, please. Thank you for your patience.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. My name is Doug Mitchell with the Surrey Little League, board member. Excuse me. Myself and several of the board members have been discussing, and some of the parents have brought it to our attention, but the fences are falling down at the baseball fields up at Malcolm Park. I've got a photo album here I took. I'll publish it to the commission when I'm done. You'll be able to see some of it's safety hazards, like this one. There's a big chunk of metal sticking out of the top of a fence that we don't want to go through, injure a kid. And then some of it's just blatantly falling down. I know that other board members have reached out to other members of the commission, and there's a tour set up that you're gonna walk the fields. But in my opinion, it's an embarrassment to the city when other teams come up here from downstate. The facilities are below standard. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, we did receive an email and forwarded it to the city manager. I don't know if you have any comments. I think you have talked to Parks and Rec.
Yep. So I forward on the emails to Director Perrin. There's a good amount of it that is some smaller maintenance items that we can take care of. We do have a process before the season starts where we have all the user groups of the baseball fields come together and we identify some of those issues. This year we didn't have a lot of participation in that meeting. But I think in total we received 3 or 4 emails over the weekend. Those have been sent off to Director Perrin. They can do some of the smaller maintenance items. The larger maintenance items, such as the fences. It's money. I mean, we're gonna need money to fix up the fences. That's really what it is. So we did put in a couple of grant requests, one through Spark. I think we mentioned that before. We were not successful in that grant. The fencing for the ball fields is not cheap. I think Director Perrin mentioned that one of the worst fields that we have up there, I don't remember which field it is, but one of the worst ones is about $20,000 to replace the outfield, the lines coming in, and the backstop. And there's probably some work that we can do for a few different fields that are probably under $8,000 or so, but in total, there's 11 fields up there. There's 11 fields up there. There's a lot of fencing that does need to replace. So if the commission wants to give us some direction, we can follow up on that particular item. We recognize that the fencing is not the best. Like I said, some of my items that were brought up, we can hammer those out as smaller maintenance items, but if there's something else the commission would like to see or do, we would be more than happy to entertain that request.
Thank you, City Manager. Any Commissioner Rubenstein?
I guess I would just ask to be able to come back what exactly we are able to fix, and then what we would need additional funds for, and maybe some potential options outside of grants, if any, that we could look at.
Thank you. And Mr. Mitchell, you mentioned a walkthrough. I'm assuming is that with the City Manager and?
Yeah, unfortunately, the Little League president, Derek Waddell, couldn't be present tonight, so
Sure.
I stepped in his place, and he set up the meeting. I believe it's for Wednesday at 3, maybe? Could be wrong.
Is it with our DPW director? Do you know, or?
Some of the commissioners are going.
No.
It was my understanding.
Haven't heard that thing. No.
I'm happy to comment, and I do have a question. I was, during the budget, and I plan on taking a tour of the facility to see the condition of the ball fields. One of the questions I asked during budgeting was about safety of the of those ball fields, because concern had been raised to me. At the time, I was told that the city could address safety issues, and I just want to ensure that that is still the case, that the city can address the safety issues before we put kids on those fields in not safe situations.
Correct.
Thank you.
And then Doug, if you could follow up maybe tomorrow with city manager or whoever the league person is, because if there's a walkthrough, we can't as commissioners walk through together. We have Open Meeting Act guidelines, so I think it would be more appropriate for either the Parks and Rec director or city manager to be contacted for a walkthrough.
Okay,
So they would be ultimately responsible for getting the information back to the commission. I mean, commissioners could look at it one at a time or two at a time, but we can't gather in a group like that.
just for clarity purposes, the league, we're starting next Monday, so I don't know if we can
Okay.
get some of this addressed this week so we can keep our season moving forward.
Yeah, if you can give them a holler tomorrow morning, I'm sure that they'll get right on it.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
your
you.
time.
Appreciate it. Any other audience members have any questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll move on into items presented by the city commission. Commissioners, anybody have any items this evening? Seeing none, Commissioner Bauer.
Your Honor, I move that we adjourn this meeting and enter into closed session.
Support.
Support.
All in favor that we say aye?